coming to you live via Facebook streaming, via YouTube streaming, and also via Skype online. Each one of you is welcome to this live streaming. Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, Sutras for entering inner centering. Sutras for entering the inner centers. There are 4 sutras in this category. The first one, which is 18, says, you will recall that these sutras were given by Shiva to his consort Devi and these form the part of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. Look lovingly at some object. Do not move to another object. Here in the middle of the object, the blessing. Look lovingly at some object. Do not move or go to another object. Here in the middle of the object, the blessings. Sutra 19, without the support for feet or hands, sit only on buttocks. Suddenly the centering. Sutra 19, in a moving vehicle, by rhythmically swaying experience, or in a still vehicle, by letting yourself swing in slow movement, by letting yours swing in slowing invisible circles. 21. Pierce some part of your nectar, filled form with a pin, and gently enter the piercing and attain the inner purity. These are the 4 sutras. Human body is a mysterious mechanism. It has 2 dimensions. In order to go outside, your consciousness uses the senses to meet the objects and beings of the world. Your eyes see the objects and the beings. Ears hear. So through these 5 sense organs, you enter the outer world and meet the world. This is matter. But this is only one dimension of the function of your body. Your body has another dimension as well. It leads you to the inner. If consciousness goes out, then whatsoever is known is matter. If consciousness moves in, then whatsoever you know is non-matter. In reality, there is no division between matter and non-matter both are one. But this reality, X, is looked at through the eyes, the senses appear as matter. This reality, let's say X, when looked at through the eyes, which is senses, it is known as matter. When it is heard through the ears, it is matter. This same reality, the X, looked from within, not through the senses, but through centering, looks like non-matter. The object or the being is the same. If you are using the sense organs or sensory perceptions, it becomes matter, and when you look at it through consciousness, it is non-matter. The reality is one, but you can look at it in two ways. First is through the senses, another is not through the senses. All these techniques of centering are really to lead you to a point where senses becomes non-operative and you go beyond the senses. You have 5 sense organs, 5 inner organs, inner sense organs. Three things have to be understood first before we can go into the technique. Firstly, when you see through the eyes, who is seeing? Eyes are seeing. What is the eye? Eye is an opening to see, is a mechanism to see. Eyes gather information, creates an image. The image is sent to the brain, where because of the memory, information is formed and you are told that this is a chair. If there is no memory of anything, eyes cannot see. Firstly, when you see through the eyes are not really seeing. They are the opening to see. The seer is behind the eyes. That which looks through the eyes is not the eyes. The one that looks through the eyes is not eyes. That is why you can close your eyes and you still see the dreams, visions, images. The seer is behind the senses. He moves through the senses to the outer world of duality. If you close your senses, the opening is closed, but the seer remains within. If seer, the consciousness is centered, suddenly he becomes aware of himself. And when you are aware of yourself, you are really aware of the whole existence. because you and existence are not two, you are one. I am that I am. Tattvamasi Shwet Ketu. But to become aware of oneself, centering is needed. By centering, I mean consciousness not being divided into many directions. Your consciousness is not moving anywhere. It is remaining in itself without moving, rooted, without any direction, just remaining within, in. It looks difficult to remain in because our mind, because for mind, even this thinking of how to remain in becomes a going out. We start thinking. How we start thinking? To think about the inner is also a thought for us. And every thought as such belongs to the outer. No thoughts belongs to the inner, because in the innermost center there is no thought, just consciousness. Thoughts are like clouds. They have come to you. They do not belong to you. None of the thought belongs to you. Every thought comes from outside, from without. You cannot produce a single thought within, inside. Every thought comes from outside. Indeed, there is no possibility of creating a thought within. Thoughts are the clouds coming to you. So whenever you are thinking, you are not inner. Remember this. To be thinking is to be out. So even if you are thinking about the inner, the soul, the self, you are really not in. All these thoughts about the self, about within, have come from outside. They do not belong to you. To you, only consciousness belongs. A sky-like, without any clouds. So what to do? How to gain simple consciousness within? Certain devices are used, because directly you cannot do anything. Some devices are needed through which you are thrown in, thrown to it. The center always needs an indirect approach. You cannot approach it directly. Understand this clearly, because this is the basic understanding, and without this you cannot enter. You are playing, and later on you report that it was blissful, that I was feeling happy, I enjoyed it. A subtle happiness has been left behind. Someone listens to you. He is also after happiness. In fact, everyone is. He says, then I must play, because if through playing happiness is achieved, then I must achieve. He plays also. But he is directly concerned with happiness, with bliss, with enjoyment. Whereas happiness is the byproduct. If you are totally into your play, absorbed, happiness results. But you are constantly hankering for happiness, nothing happens. The play is the start. You can involve in it. You happen to visit a food place. You order some food. You were not aware of it. You taste the dishes and you find it really enjoyable, tasty and good. You come back home and you report it to someone who is guided by your reporting, and he goes there thinking about the taste and everything. Nothing will happen if you are constantly hankering about something to happen. Whatever has to happen happens only when you are absorbed in it. You are listening to the music. Someone says, I feel blissful. But if constantly you are directly concerned with bliss, you will not be able to listen. That concern, that greed for bliss will become the barrier. Bliss is a byproduct. You cannot grab it directly. It is so delicate a phenomena that you have to approach it only indirectly. Do something else and it happens. You cannot do it directly. Whatsoever is beautiful, whatsoever is eternal, is so delicate that if you try to grab it directly, it is destroyed. You cannot reach it, you cannot approach it. That is what is meant by techniques and devices. These techniques go on telling you to do something. That which you are doing is not significant. The result is significant. But the mind is concerned with doing, with techniques, not the result. You are the mind. Mind is always concerned with technique, not with the result. The result happens, it is bound to happen, but it always happens indirectly. So do not be concerned with the results. Get absorbed into what you are doing. Be concerned with the technique. Do it as totally as possible with total absorption and forget about the result. It happens. But you cannot become a barrier to it. The moment you start thinking about the results, you become the barrier. If you are concerned only with the results, it will never happen. And then it becomes very strange. People come and they say, you said if we meditate this will happen. But you are not meditating, you are constantly thinking for something to happen. But we are doing it and it is not happening. They are right. They have forgotten the condition, the basic condition. You have to forget about the results. Only then does it happen. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Your duty is only to do the action. Results are not in your hand. You have to be in the act totally. The more you are in the act, the more absorbed you are in the act, sooner or later the result happens. But it is always indirect. Remember this. You can only get involved, get absorbed in the action. You cannot be aggressive about it. You cannot be violent about it. It is such a delicate phenomenon. It cannot be attacked. It only comes to you while you are engaged somewhere else, so totally that inner space is vacant. These techniques, all the techniques of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra are all indirect. There is no direct technique for a spiritual happening. Now let me go into the technique that says, look lovingly at some object. Do not go or move to another object. Here in the middle of the object, the blessing. I repeat it. Look lovingly at some object. Do not go or move to another object. Here in the middle of the object, the blessing. What is meant by look lovingly on some object? The key word is lovingly. Have you ever looked lovingly at any object? You may say yes. But do you really know what is meant by looking lovingly at an object? You may have looked lustfully at the object. That is another thing. It is totally different, diametrically opposite. So first the difference, try to feel the difference. A beautiful face, a beautiful body, you look at it and you feel you are looking at it lovingly. But why are you looking at it? Do you want to get something out of it? And if you want to get something out of it, then it is lust, not love. Do you want to exploit it? Then it is lust, not love. Then really you are thinking of how to use this body, how to possess it, how to make this body an instrument for your happiness. This is lust. This is how it happens. Lust means you are Lust means how to use something for your happiness. Lust means how to use something for your happiness. And love means your happiness is not at all concerned. Really, lust means you are getting something out of it, and love means how to give something. The basic difference between the lust and love is lust means how to get something out of it, and love means how to give something, and both are diametrically opposite. What is the basic difference between love and lust? Lust means how to get something out of it, how to get happiness out of it. And love means how to give. Buddha is concerned with how to give. How my presence can create happiness in you. How my presence, how my words can create solace in you. How my words and the energy flowing through these can create ripples within you. If you see a beautiful face and you feel love towards the face, the immediate feeling if you see a beautiful face and you feel love towards the face, the immediate feeling and consciousness will be how to do something to make this face happy. How to do something to make this man or this woman happy. The concern is not about yourself. The concern is about the other. How this beautiful face, what can I add to it to be more beautiful? In love, the other is important. In lust, you are important. In lust, you are thinking how to make the other your instrument. In love, you are thinking to become an instrument yourself. In lust, you are going to sacrifice the other. In love, you are going to sacrifice yourself. Love means giving. Lust means getting. Love means giving. Lust means getting. Love is surrender. Lust is aggression. Whatsoever you say is meaningless. Even in lust, you talk in terms of love. Your language is not very meaningful, so you can deceive. Look within, and then you will come to understand that you have not even once in your life looked lovingly towards someone or some object? Introspect. Have you ever looked at some face or some object lovingly? Now, the second distinction has to be made. The sutra says, look lovingly on some object. Really, even if you look lovingly at something material, insentient, the object will become a person. If you lovingly at it, your love is the key to transform anything into a person. It becomes alive for you. If you look lovingly at a tree, the tree becomes alive. It becomes a person for you. This is why in certain spiritual retreats, the trees are named. Have you ever heard of anyone naming the tree? No one names a tree because no one feels love for tree, and tree is not alive for you. If the case were otherwise, the tree would become a person, then it is not just one in a crowd. It becomes unique. You name the dogs and cats. You name a dog and you call it by any name. The dog becomes a person. Then it is not just a dog among other dogs or a cat among other cats. It has a personality. You have given it a name and it has become you have created a person out of it. Whatsoever you look lovingly at something, it becomes a person. And the contrary is also true. When you look at something lustfully, with lustful eyes towards a person, that person becomes an object, a thing. That is why when you look at a woman or a man lustfully, it becomes an object and you are ready to use the object for your happiness. That is why the lustful eyes are repulsive, because no one wants to become a thing. If you look at your wife or your husband lustfully, or another man or a woman with lustful eyes, the other feels hurt. What are you doing really? You are changing or reducing a person, a living person, to a dead instrument, an object. You are constantly thinking how to use, and the person in that is destroyed. That is why lustful eyes are repulsive. When you look at someone with love, the other is raised. He becomes unique. Suddenly he becomes a person. Or even if it is an object, it becomes person. A person cannot be replaced. A thing can be replaced. A thing means that which is replaceable. A person means that which cannot be replaced. There is no possibility of replacing him or her. But what actually happens, we reduce the husband and wife as an object. A person is unique. A thing is not unique. That's why the sutra says, look at any object lovingly. Love means, love makes anything unique. That is why without love, you never feel like a person. Unless someone loves you deeply, you never feel that you have any uniqueness. You are just one in the crowd, just a number, a data, and that can be changed. For example, you are a worker in an office, or a teacher in a school, or a professor in the university. Your professorhood, your teacherhood is replaceable. Another professor can replace you. He can replace you at another moment. He can replace you at any moment, because you are just used there as a professor. You have a functional meaning and functional significance. If you are a clerk, someone else is easily able to do the work that you are doing. The work cannot wait for you. You die this moment, next moment someone else replaces you. The mechanism will continue. You are just a figure, and another figure will do the same job. You are just there as a utility. But then someone falls in love with this clerk or this professor. Suddenly the clerk is no more a clerk. He has become a unique person. If he dies, the beloved cannot replace him. He is irreplaceable. Then the whole world may go in the same way, but the one who was in love cannot be the same. This uniqueness, this being a person, happens only through love. So Sutra says, look lovingly at some object. It makes no difference between an object or a person. There is no need to differentiate, because what is important, if you are looking at it lovingly, out of love or out of lust, anything will become a person. It is the look that changes or transforms it. You may not have observed what happens when you drive a particular car. You may call it Ambassador, you may call it Toyota, you may call it by any other name. There are thousands of Toyotas exactly similar, but your car, if you are in love with it, becomes unique, a person. It cannot be replaced. A relationship is created. Now you feel this car as a person. If something goes wrong, a slight sound, you feel it. And the cars are very temperamental. You know the temper of your car, when it feels good and when it feels bad. The car becomes by and by a person. I have named my car Kalindi, to give it a feminine touch, to give it a uniqueness. You identify car by the registration number. I have identified my car with a name, making it a person. Why? If there is a love relationship, anything becomes a person. You can name your computer. You can be in love with it. It responds to you. You would have observed, specifically those who are writers. They use a particular pen or a desktop. When they are on the desk, they use a particular pen, thoughts flow more easily. There is a subtle relationship between pen and the thoughts. There is a sudden relationship between the desktop where you sit down to do the work. The table is the same. My office desk, which is the studio come office, has the same table, which is both my dining table and this are the same dimension, same color and everything. When I have to do some work, I do not feel comfortable. I start sometimes a small work on the dining table, but then suddenly I move to the official desk in the studio in the office. There I feel more comfortable because there is a subtle connection between me, the desk, and the innerness. If there is a love relationship, anything becomes a person. If there is a lust relationship, then any person will become an object. The moment someone sits in my car and slams the door, a sound comes out. I immediately tell the person, you have slammed the door too hard. You have to be gentle on it. It hurts. You may find it crazy. But really, I have made that object a living being with me. There is a connection with it. When I drive my car, I don't drive any other car. I have to condition, but at the moment my car is being used for business purposes by my assistant driver. So since he is using it, I am not using it. I am not driving it. But the moment I take the possession of the car, I have to condition it to myself. That is why when you sit down, you have to drive a car. First you sit down, get a feel of it. This is natural and you do not know why you do this. You are establishing a rapport between you and the vehicle. And if there is a lust relationship, then a person will become a thing. I cannot consider car as a dead object. It is a living object, living mechanism. And this is one of the most human act you can do, to make something a living object, living, and inhuman when you convert a living mechanism as a thing. So Sutra says, look lovingly at some object. So what to do? When you look lovingly, what are you to do? First thing, you have to forget yourself. Forget yourself completely. Look at a flower and forget yourself completely. Let the flower be. You become completely absent. You are not there. Feel the flower. And as you begin to feel the flower, a deep love will flow from your consciousness towards the flower. Let your consciousness be filled with only one thought: how to help this flower to be more a flower, to be more beautiful, to become more blissful. What can you do? It is not meaningful whether you can do or not. That is really irrelevant. The feeling of what you can do, this pain, this deep ache over what you can do to make this flower more beautiful, more alive, more flowering, is meaningful. Let this thought echo into your whole being. Let every fiber of your being, your body, your mind feel it. You will be transfixed in an ecstasy, and the flower will become a person. Do not, this second part of the sutra says, do not go to another object. You cannot go. If you are in love relationship, you cannot go. If you love someone if you love someone, then you forget the whole crowd. Only one face remains in front of you. Really, you do not see anyone else. You see only one face. The others are there, but they remain subliminal, just on the periphery of your consciousness. They are not. They are just shadows. Only one face remains. If you love someone, then only that face remains. So you cannot move. The sutra says, do not go to another object. Remain with one. Remain with rose flower, or remain with a beloved's face. Remain there loving, flowing, and just with just one heart, with the feeling of what can I do to make the loved one happier and blissful. The last part of the sutra says, first look at an object, do not move to another. And the last part, look in the middle of the object, the blessing. And when this is the case, you are absent, not concerned with yourself at all, not selfish, not thinking in terms of your pleasure, your joy, your happiness, your gratification. You have forgotten yourself completely. You are just thinking in terms of the other. The other has become the center of your love. Your consciousness is flowing towards the other. With deep compassion, with deep feeling of love, you are thinking, what can I do to make the loved one more blissful? In this state, suddenly, in the middle of the object, the blessing. Suddenly, as a byproduct, the blessing comes to you. Suddenly, you are centered. It looks paradoxical because the sutra said to forget yourself completely, not to be self-centered. Move to the other completely. Buddha is reported to have said continuously that whenever you are praying, pray for others, not for yourself. Otherwise the prayer is useful. Otherwise the prayer is useless. One man came to Buddha and said, I accept your teachings, but the only thing is it is very difficult to accept. You say that whatsoever we do, prayer, we are not to think about ourselves. We are not to ask anything about ourselves. We have to say whatsoever may be the result of my prayer, let that result be distributed to all. If blessing happens, let it be distributed to all. The man said, this is okay, but I can make only one exception, not to my immediate neighbor. He is my enemy. Let this blessing be distributed to all except my neighborhood. The mind is self-centered. So Buddha said your prayer is useless. Nothing will come out of it unless you are ready to give all. Unless you are ready to distribute all, then all will be yours. In love, you forget yourself. It looks paradoxical. will decentering happen? By being totally centered with the other, with the happiness of the other. When you forget yourself completely, only the other remains there. Suddenly you are filled with bliss, the blessing. Why does this happen? Because when you are not concerned with yourself, you become empty within. The inner space is created. When your mind is totally concerned with the other, you become mindless within. Then there are no thoughts within. And then this thought, how can I be helpful? How can I create more bliss? How can the other be more happy? Cannot continue anymore, because really there is nothing you can do. This thought becomes a stop. There is nothing you can do. What can you do? If you think you can do, you are thinking in terms of yourself. This is ego. With the love object, with the love, the object, one becomes helpless. Remember this. Whenever you love someone, you feel totally helpless. This is the agony of love. You cannot feel what he can do. He wants to do everything. He wants to give the whole universe to the lover or the beloved. But what can he do? If you think that you can do this or that, you are not really in a love relationship. Love is very helpless, absolutely helpless, and that helplessness is its beauty, because in that helplessness you are surrendered. Love someone, you will feel helpless. Hate someone, and you can do something. Love someone and you will feel completely helpless, because what can you do? Whatsoever you can do seems insignificant, meaningless. You feel that you have not done enough. Nothing can be done. And when one feels that nothing can be done, he feels helpless. When one wants to do everything yet feels nothing can be done, that very moment mind stops. In this helplessness, when mind stops, suddenly surrender happens. You are empty. This is why love becomes a deep meditation. Really, if you love someone, no other meditation is needed. But because no one loves, 112 methods are needed. And even they are not enough. Love alone is the greatest method, but love is most difficult. It is always impossible. Love means putting yourself out of your putting yourself out from your consciousness And in the same place where your ego has been in existence, putting someone else, replacing yourself with someone else, alone means love. As if now you are not and only the other is. I will continue with this in the next Saturday, this sutra and then the other sutras that are needed for inner centering. So only this much for this morning. I thought that I will finish this morning, but it will be necessary to continue this. With taking another few dimensions related to it. So until then, take care and do have a pleasant day.